Imagine waking up to find that the world as you know it is falling apart. And it's all because of you. What would you do? This is the story of Luna, a small stray kitten with a simple dream: to find a home and a little love. But one seemingly innocent decision led to a chain of events that changed her life and the fate of an entire city forever. What happened to Luna? And how did things spiral so out of control? Let's dive in. Luna was no ordinary kitten, but not for the reasons you'd expect. She lived a hard life on the streets, darting from alley to alley, scavenging scraps just to survive. Most nights, she curled up under an old broken bench, shivering and dreaming of a warm bed and a family to call her own. One evening, as the city buzzed with its usual chaos, Luna stumbled upon something unusual. A large truck pulled up to a quiet restaurant, and its driver unloaded several glowing barrels. Curious, Luna crept closer. Her stomach growled, and the faintly sweet smell wafting from one of the barrels was irresistible. Without thinking, she licked the strange neon green liquid that had dripped from one of the barrels. At first, nothing happened. But hours later, as she wandered the dimly lit streets, Luna began to feel strange. Her tiny legs trembled, her vision blurred, and then she started to grow. By the time the sun rose, Luna wasn't just big, she was enormous. Her paws were the size of cars, and her shadow loomed over entire buildings. The once small, unnoticed kitten had become the talk of the city. At first, she tried to hide. But where could a giant cat go unnoticed? Cars screeched to a halt, people screamed in terror, and news helicopters hovered overhead. Luna's heart broke. She didn't want to hurt anyone. She just wanted to be loved. Meanwhile, in a hidden laboratory on the outskirts of the city, Dr. Keller, a reclusive and guilt-ridden scientist, watched the news in horror. He recognized the glowing barrels immediately. They contained an experimental chemical he had developed but never perfected. The barrels should have been destroyed, but somehow they ended up in the wrong hands. Dr. Keller knew one thing for certain. If Luna continued to grow, it wouldn't just be the city at risk, it would be the entire planet. But there was a problem. The chemical had no known antidote. Back in the city, Luna's attempts to avoid trouble only made things worse. She accidentally knocked over a power line, plunging half the city into darkness. Her enormous size crushed cars and buildings, even as she tried desperately to step lightly. "I didn't mean to," she cried out, but her booming voice only frightened people more. The mayor declared Luna a threat, and the city's emergency services were ordered to capture her at all costs. As night fell, the situation reached its breaking point. A massive explosion rocked the city. A gas station had ignited when Luna accidentally swiped her paw too close. Fire spread and chaos erupted. Luna froze in horror, unable to move as she watched the flames engulf the streets. Dr. Keller, now desperate, decided to confront Luna himself. Armed with a prototype antidote, he raced to the scene. When he found her, she was crouched in the middle of an empty street, her massive eyes glistening with tears. "This is my fault," Luna said softly. "I didn't want this to happen." Dr. Keller hesitated. The antidote was untested, and using it on Luna could be dangerous, possibly fatal. But it was the only chance to save her and the city. "Luna," he said, "if you take this, you might shrink back to normal. But there's a risk. I can't promise you'll survive." Luna looked around at the destruction she had caused. People screamed for help in the distance. Firefighters worked tirelessly to control the blaze. Her heart ached, not for herself, but for the innocent lives her existence had endangered. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady. "If it means everyone else will be safe." With trembling hands, Dr. Keller handed her the antidote. Luna licked the vial clean and waited. At first, nothing happened. Then, Luna's massive body began to shake. Her fur shimmered, and she let out a low guttural cry as she started to shrink. The process was agonizing. She collapsed onto the ground, her form diminishing with each passing second. When it was over, she lay there, tiny, frail, and barely breathing. The city fell silent, holding its collective breath. Slowly, Luna opened her eyes. She was small again, vulnerable. As people gathered around her, something extraordinary happened. Instead of fear or anger, the crowd began to cheer. A firefighter gently wrapped her in a blanket, and a little girl stepped forward, offering Luna her half-eaten sandwich. Dr. Keller knelt beside her. "You're a hero, Luna," he said. "You saved us all."